All right, so that was a really quick origin of the material itself, starting with practical bandits, the bandit, the space station, which now is the Jupiter, because like I said, the whole Titan thing is way overdone. There's too many things called the Titan out there, so I didn't want no part of that. So I thought Jupiter would be a good substitute for Titan. Largest planet, largest space station, pretty no real no real stretch there. And a little bit about the origin of Mirov, directly coming from, I mean, heavily influenced rather from Smedless's. I mean, hell, directly, I guess, in a way, just because, I mean, Julia Roman was, I mean, such a heavy visual influence on me and her demeanor and whatnot. So anyway, that leads to writing this current incarnation. So like I said back then, you had the practical bandits, the Necropolis bandits, and I think the third one at the time was going to be rogue bandits. And of course, rogue is another thing that's overdone, so I won't ever do rogue. With Rogue One and everything else, which is another thing that's way overdone. So I don't know what the third one would be now. We haven't got that far ahead, but and I don't know that I'll do it in the same way. It was the first one was sort of establishment. Second was Mars independence, and the third one was going to be the invasion by the aliens. Well, I don't think I'd do that again. Not know if that really interests me in the same way anymore. And so I told you how Mirov got there and how we all got here. So writing this particular book, COVID happened, and you had a lot more time in your hands. And I had done indie movies for quite a few years, and it's really difficult. It's hard to get paid, and money's not so much an issue as your vision happening. Um, and nothing I've ever done is even close to what I see in my head, not at all. And that's no fault of an actor. That's not any fault of a cameraman or anybody else. It's just the budgets. There's no budget to do this stuff, and I've never had anything remotely. It's all been done freebie, and I mean, small little things here and there. I've gotten some budget before, but most of that went to stuff that never made it to screen. It went to like computers or tech or something. So it had nothing to do with what you saw. It wasn't like wrecking a car, like buying cars and exploding a car, nothing like that. So it's like really difficult. So like in my head, it's very frustrating to see these things in my head and not even get it close. I mean, not even like 5% close. I mean, it's just horribly bad in terms of what I see versus what I can do. So that doesn't really interest me anymore. What interests me is like getting these stories out of my head, and the only way to do that is through a novel at this point. So I decided, well, the big one in my head is the Mirov story. So let's just pick it back up. And I tried to write. I kind of was stuck at the beginning. I kind of had a few false starts where like I started to do a one where like these refugees would come from Mars and know that Mirov's out here on Earth and find her, and then have her join their battle and go through. I started that at first, but I didn't like that because I wanted Mirov to be the hero from beginning to end. I want Mirov to be front and center, beginning to end. I hate that when like I don't like it when Batman's not the lead in a Batman movie. I don't like it. You know what I mean? I don't like it when Spider-Man's not the lead. If I go to see a movie called Mirov, I want Mirov to be the main person. You don't go see Indiana Jones and like some other person gets all the screen. No, you pay to see Indiana Jones. So Mirov is the hero. She's the first character introduced, and it ends with her and everything in between. In fact, so much so, I decided to write the book where it's all from her point of view, except for when it goes to the daughters. There might be, I think, a little bit, a very, very little bit that strays from that. I think maybe I go to the governor, maybe, or something once for a little bit without either one of them, but not much, not for long. So that's I decided to restructure it where, and I like movies and stories. I say movies because in my mind it's more of a movie than a book. I mean, I'm not an author. I might be a writer, maybe, but I'm definitely not an author. To me, this is just a way to get this movie, this visual image onto some paper. So the play, the movie in my head, I like it where you start with one spot and you end up somewhere completely different. So like, well, it'd be cool to start with a movie that begins on the barren landscapes of Mars, but end up in like an urban setting with with a daughter, and you've gone through all this like crazy stuff in between, these extreme circumstances in between. So, and I thought, that's part of like the Joseph Campbell thing. And I watched some movies that were heavily derived from, like George Miller and all the Mad Max stuff. I went and I watched Fury Road because I wanted to remind myself and refresh myself of beginning somewhere and ending somewhere else. And so, you've got Fury Road begins looking on a hill. He eats a lizard and he goes on the run. And I thought, well, that's kind of a cool. I like that. That's a good place to start, on a hill looking out. The hero looking out over the story. So I did the same thing. This one begins with a hero looking out over the story, and that's where the similarities end for the most part. But you get the idea. So you go from the Joseph Campbell idea of like leaving and then coming back to home, and in this instance, it starts where she's already has left. I mean, she's home is Earth, and home is at Unidom, and home is with her daughter. But in this story, she's already halfway away, and we're fixing to see the second half of that journey back. And I like the idea of a troubled hero. I don't like squeaky clean. I don't like it being too vague. I mean, she's good. I mean, Mirov's violent, but she makes moral decisions. I mean, she kills bad guys, right? Everybody she kills is either a traitor to humanity or they've done something directly evil. She doesn't just like kill people because it's convenient for her. I mean, so yeah. So anyway, so we have the journey and her coming back. So I like the old idea of her having a complex background. There had to be a reason to not have the daughter. There had to be a reason to not be on Earth and be so far away. So that was the idea of, okay, well, when the daughter was stolen from her, she killed a whole bunch of them. So she had to leave. And that's where that came from, that was a reason to get her away from there. The most important character in the story is Ethel. She is what finally made it all come together. So the problem is you need somebody to see the story through. Mirov already knows the story. Why would Mirov talk about killing 50 agents or 48 or whatever it is? Why would she talk about that? She did that. She experienced it. So and it's hard for you, the audience, to get informed of that. Why would Mirov talk about daughters? Why would she talk about that stuff? She already knows it. You don't go like to the mall and say, hey, well, I was born at a hospital 40 years ago. I mean, no, you lived your life. You don't explain something you've already done, right? So it's only when somebody new comes along that you would tell your story to them. So like with Ethel, that gave me like somebody her to talk to and somebody to like share the story with that wouldn't know everything that she knew. Plus it helps Mirov like get information, vice versa. So like, for instance, like the whole scene where she goes and gets the bandit from the skunk works. I could have, and I thought a lot about writing a setup where it's like Mission Impossible. She's got this grand big way to infiltrate and stuff like that. And honestly, like it's kind of like been done so many times. Like I didn't really think it was interesting. Wouldn't be interesting for her to have to go through a thing and get over a security thing and get to another thing. And that just wouldn't really, I mean, you've seen that, right? So like, what if she just was given this authority, and maybe that comes from the fact that the governor, excuse me, the governor is like, okay, you screwed this up, fix it. And all part of his, how deep his desires to let the MLA be completely let to run rampant to expose themselves. So he's even willing to go this far to give her an opportunity to bring them out and more and more and more and more out of the open. Thought that was way more interesting. And so because with Ethel there, she's got somebody to uncover all these secrets, easily. It's not really interesting anymore to me to have all these secrets uncovered with this techno espionage stuff that's been done so many times in movies. It's kind of quite boring, actually. What's really important is like not so much how they get stuff, but why and what's the motivations and what they're going to do with it. I was more interested in the characters than these scenarios. Okay. So Ethel was somebody to see the story through, but also to like to help her get these informational points and the exposition points without being boring exposition. So Ethel serves multiple purposes. She helps me get rid of exposition is basically the boring, and also it helps somebody to see the ice through. So she's crucial, just like the droids in the first, A New Hope, Star Wars, the first Star Wars. You need the droids because that's who you see the story through. That's how the story gets explained through, and it lets Star Wars begins on the spaceship, and then Luke ends up with the Death Star. You get a whole big arc comes up. Well, that's all seeable through the droids. Well, Ethel, it's all seeable through Ethel, and so that she's really, really crucial. She was a late addition, and then when I came up with the idea of Ethel, that's what opened up the floodgates, and I was able to write the novel. She was completely crucial to the story. But that tells you kind of why it was written now and how the story structure come about, and that tells you about Ethel. So that, I think on the next portion, I'll talk a little bit about the bad guy and governor and stuff like that. All right, so stay tuned.